Now, my ship, the USS Pennsylvania, was a flagship of the fleet. Whenever we'd be in port, we'd be tied up at a dock there, because the Admiral evidently liked to just walk off the ship whenever he wanted to go ashore. All the other ships would be way out. It'd be a 15, 20-minute boat ride there. And so rank has its privileges. We tied up at a dock there, 1010 dock there, which is 1,010 feet long, and so that's why they call it 1010 dock at Pearl Harbor itself. We had propeller trouble. So two days before that, on December 5th of 1941, we went into dry dock. I think most of you know what a dry dock is. You go inside an enclosure, setting it on blocks. You close the gate there, pump the water out. That way you could work on the bottom of the ship, the propellers or whatever. We had 2 destroyers in the dry dock with us, the Cassin and the Downs there, nested in around our bow, front part of the ship. We were scheduled to leave the ship at 8 o'clock Sunday morning, December 7th, do a little scrimmaging and get ready for the game with the USS Arizona. You know about the Super Bowl that we have nowadays. This was going to be the Super Bowl in the Navy, the Fleet Championship. We were going to play the USS Arizona for Fleet Championship. There's a little field close by to us. There was no place to change clothes, so we were instructed to put on our uniforms to get ready for that game. Carry our spikes and helmet with us there. 8 o'clock we could leave the ship. The living compartment, the quartermasters are back by the rudder, back by the propellers, way in the back part of the ship. That's where we were. About 7 minutes of 8, the phone rang. I picked up the phone and answered the phone. One of the fellows there was up on the deck, called down and says the Japanese are attacking Pearl Harbor. I said, oh, come on, we've been talking about it there. Let's not joke about that. But at that time, the ship shuddered. Evidently, some of the people who were close to the guns saw what was going on. They started shooting at the planes there before the people below the decks knew what was going on. About that time, general quarters went, all hands man your battle stations. Now, my battle station's up in the crow's nest, about 70 feet up in the air. All my padding on, you don't have time to change clothes. A little trapdoor to get to it. I pull myself through there to get up there. By the time I got up there, planes were buzzing around there. Some of the planes were lower down than I was, because the torpedo planes have to come down low, drop their torpedoes, and then come back up. So some of them were lower down than I was. The first attack, they didn't know that my ship had moved into dry dock. Normally it would be there. The Japanese knew where all the ships were at there. In fact, 2 planes, we found out later, were scheduled to hit the USS Pennsylvania because it was a flagship of the fleet. You know, in the movies there, you knock out the chief, maybe you got a better chance of winning the battle there. They made sure that their 2 planes were going to hit the USS Pennsylvania, but we weren't in the normal place. So evidently, the first attack was just about 5 minutes of 8 on Sunday morning, December 7th is when the attack came. Now the second attack, evidently some of the pilots there, the first attack reported there's a big ship in dry dock and 2 destroyers there. So the second attack, they hit us with a 500-pound bomb. It came in between the 2 masts there. Armor-piercing bomb came way past me, missed me about 45 feet, came on down, exploded way below decks. Kind of shook me, but it didn't hurt me there. It's kind of scary to see a big hole alongside of you. At the same time, we got hit, the Cassin, and one of the destroyers that dried up with us got hit also. It started burning, rolled over on the other destroyer on the Downs. It said, flood the dry dock, put out the fire. The only bad thing is oil came up from the destroyer, came on top of the water, caught fire, so we had flames all around us. Oil and water do not mix. We were patched up enough. The next morning, Japanese were at war with us. Franklin Delano Roosevelt got Congress to declare war on Japan. Now, we had lines blocks long lines of people enlisting in the service because we were attacked there. Everybody wanted to join. Up to that time, the women were staying home, the men were working. Now the men were gone. So what happened? The women stepped in. You've seen signs we can do it there. They did it. They built planes. The women built planes there, built ships, tanks, guns, whatever was needed for the war effort there. We were at war. They did the job there. We needed the work that they did. They did it. I know they're in the workforce now because at that time they stepped into the workforce. They don't get paid what they should get, but I don't know what's going to happen on that. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't care what sex you are, what color you are, what, if you do the work, you should get paid for it. My ship was an old ship built in 1916. We do 15 knots downhill with the tailwind. We didn't have the speed there. So they fixed us up enough. Less than 2 weeks after the attack on Pearl Harbor, we were back in Bethlehem Steel and Hunters Point, getting ready for the invasions of what was going to take place because we were at war. We were so slow we couldn't keep up with aircraft carriers, but let's mention aircraft carriers. The third attack at Pearl Harbor was supposed to be hit the aircraft carriers, the fuel facilities, and the tank farms, the oil, the repair facilities and the oil farms. Now there's no aircraft carriers in port that day. Admiral Halsey and his aircraft carrier group were taking planes to Midway and Wake Island, so there was no aircraft carriers in port. So they were delayed about 12 hours come back. In fact, Japan knew about that the planes and the aircraft carriers were supposed to be back, but they were not. They were delayed by weather. So Admiral Nagumo, the Japanese fleet, decided they did not know where the aircraft carriers were. They better not stick around. So they left. If there had been a third attack, I don't believe we would have won the war. Because if they would hit the repair facilities and the oil farms, closest oil, closest repair facility, 2,000 miles away, I think it would have been a disaster. But fortunately, the aircraft carrier group were not in port. There was no third attack. The Japanese fleet left. Now, of all those ships at Pearl Harbor that were hit, and all kinds of them were hit, there's only 3 ships that did not rise to fight again in World War II. USS Arizona, which is right there now in Memorial. USS Utah, which is an old battleship, used as a target ship. And the USS Oklahoma. The Oklahoma was a battleship that was sunk in 20 minutes. It had 6 torpedoes hit the USS Oklahoma. That's the one you maybe seen pictures on the side of it there. And you see figures on it there. That was the people cutting holes in it, trying to get the people out. I personally knew 2 of the people that went out through portholes while the USS Oklahoma was rolling over. We had a big inspection on Monday morning. Have all the holes, everything was going to be inspected. So a lot of the places, it took a while to open up, so a lot of the places were on the compartments on the ships were opened up. Get ready for that inspection. That's why the Oklahoma rolled over. Now, the Oklahoma was sold for scrap. They were taking it back to the States. It sunk on the way. So that's the only 3 ships that were at Pearl Harbor, and there was lots and lots of them were there. Every one of the others rose to fight again. Now, in April of 1942, the morale in the United States was bad. They decided they better do something. They found a man by the name of Jimmy Doolittle. He was at that time, there was no Air Force. It was a U.S. Army Air Corps at that time. They found Jimmy Doolittle. They trained pilots there to take off with 16 bombers off the USS Hornet, not the one at Pearl Harbor at Alameda now. It's the first Hornet that had. It's going to bomb Japan, get close enough to take off in a short distance. And think about a bomber taking off a short distance, because the aircraft carrier itself was only about 800, 900 feet at that time. They weren't as big as they are now. They were trying to take off, but they were detected early. They did take off, bombed Japan. They were supposed to land in China itself, where fields were all set up for them. They were detected early. They had to get off early, so the gas situation was very, very poor. They did bomb Japan. It did very little damage, but they did two things. First thing is, Japan saw maybe they were a little vulnerable to have attacks, so they pulled a lot of their planes, excuse me, a lot of their planes, a lot of their ships and men back to the homeland, which made it a lot less that we had to contend with when we did invade them, the islands itself. Plus, it helped the morale of the United States. We were doing something. We were fighting back here. So those two things that really helped, even though the very low damage was done. Like I mentioned, my ship was an old ship. They used it for fire support for the various invasions. My ship was in the invasion of Attu, Kiska. I mentioned Kiska. We bombarded Kiska, landed troops on there. The only thing we found was one dog. Japan had already left there. That's all that's left, so we didn't have anybody to fight with except, I'm not sure how much a dog put up a fight, but there was no fighting against the other enemy troops on Kiska itself. And we went to Macon, Kwajalein, Inuitak, Palau, Saipan, Guam, and Philippines. All those invasions were there for fire support.